What's up everybody, Super Dorks fan here, and I was going to make this video originally as part of the upcoming weekly update video, but I decided that it's probably going to be long-winded, and so I figured I'd just make this its own video. So, last week I broke the news to a lot of you that I'm going to be selling the BRZ and most likely buying a Mini Cooper S, and so I got tons of comments, lots of great support. Thank you guys so much for, most of you said you're going to stick with me and the channel and, keep watching and you love the videos regardless of what I drive, and those kind of comments really, make me feel a lot better, and it's really great to know that I have such loyal fans that you guys will stick with me no matter what, and I really, really appreciate that. So another thing I didn't expect at all is large majority of you guys suggested a different car for me to buy instead of a Mini Cooper S. Some of you do like the Mini Cooper S, but a lot of you are like, buy this car, buy that car instead of a Mini Cooper S. So I mean, I know that you guys will like the Mini Cooper S if I do get it. I'll probably be getting it here very soon, the next day or two, hopefully. But in case something doesn't work out with the Mini Cooper S, I appreciate all the other comments and ideas of different cars to buy. So I just, instead of going and replying to zillions of comments, because a lot of you suggested the same cars, I figured I'd just do a separate video and just answer all the different cars that you guys have suggested and why I am not buying one of those instead and getting a Mini instead. So the first car is, of course, everyone says, you're a Super Dorks fan, buy a WRX. Good, that's a good idea and something I actually really considered. Reasons why I'm not buying a WRX. Well, first, I don't really want to buy anything too old. Especially with WRXs, it seems like, a lot of the older ones are in really rough shape. They've been to hell and back, and it's just really hard to find a nice, clean, old WRX, unfortunately. I mean, they are out there. There's a few. Every once in a while I'll see one, but it's very rare, and this is something that I can't wait around. I can't shop around for months on end looking for a pristine, old WRX. Another thing is, I do like refinement and creature comforts and, modern technology, modern safety, and so that's one of the reasons why I'm not looking at some of the older WRXs. I would go something like a 2006 or 2007 WRX. Unfortunately, I can't find any of those in decent shape for anything less than $12,000 or $13,000. As I mentioned briefly, I think my budget is around $10,000 is what I'm going for, and so that's why the Mini Cooper S fits that so perfectly. I'll discuss all the reasons why I chose the Mini. If I do end up getting the Mini, I'll explain all the reasons as to why I like the Mini Cooper S and why it fits my criteria better than all the other cars you suggested. But anyway, so that's why I'm not getting an old WRX. But as far as the 06, 07s, I would like one. They're not within my price range. So that's the main reason why I'm not getting that. Some people suggested I get the new WRX, and that's another thing that, some people suggested I get like a brand new car or something expensive. Budget is like around $10,000, maybe 11 or 12 tops. Absolute max. Nothing 15, 20, 25, 30, nothing like that. So I'm not selling the BRZ just because I'm bored with it or anything like that. I'm selling it because I have to and I need something cheaper. Also, some people suggested I refinance the BRZ, which is a pretty good idea. I actually looked into that already, and if I refinanced it based on how much I owe still, and how much equity I have in the car and things like that, I would still be paying probably $350 a month instead of $500, which I mean is a reduction, but I'm looking for something, $200 a month or less. So doesn't reduce it enough. Another suggestion that people had was for me to lease a car, because that's cheaper, obviously. I personally don't like leasing because after you're done with it, you don't have anything to show for it. You have no equity built up. You just return the car. It's basically a car rental for a certain amount of years. It works for some people if you have, if you don't drive very much, because they do have low mileage limits as well. I drive 15,000 miles a year, so for that reason alone, I couldn't do a lease. But if I didn't drive very much, then a lease would make sense. I know people that have leases, and it makes sense in certain situations, but for me personally, it doesn't. Another car people suggested was for me to get back into a Legacy GT like what I used to have. I had an 06 Legacy GT Spec B. That was a great car. I sold it a little over a year ago for $14,500. So that was, back then, I mean, even that would be out of my price range now, even if I want to go back and buy back my old car. Probably wouldn't be able to do that. I could get a standard Legacy GT, some higher miles or something maybe, for close to $10,000, but even that's kind of a stretch, and again, I don't want a really beat up car, and so getting a Legacy with 100,000 miles, plus I've already had a Legacy GT, I loved it, but I kind of want something new, something different. I don't want to just go back to what I had, because then it really would feel like a downgrade to me if I'm just going back to what I used to own. But not a bad car though, and good suggestion. Another good suggestion that a lot of you had was an older Honda Civic Si. I've reviewed 3 different Honda Civic SIs now. I love them. They're great cars. They are very fun. They're very comfortable, good daily drivers that are still exciting. The main reason why I'm not buying one is, well, first, they're out of my price range as well. I can't, even like an 06, the first year of that new generation, even one of those I can't find for, anything less than $12,000 in decent shape. Again, decent shape. I could get something with 150,000 miles on it, but I just don't want something that old. I want something that's in relatively nice shape, not super beat up. Another very popular car suggestion was a Nissan 350Z or an Infiniti G35. 350Z, the main reason why is because I heard they're terrible in the snow, and even if they aren't terrible in the snow, I'd like to have some form of a back seat, and the 350Z does not have a back seat, so for that reason alone it's out. There's a few other things. I'll hopefully do a 350Z review eventually. I know everyone begs and pleads for me to review a 350Z. I'm trying to find one. I just don't know anyone that owns a 350Z. I can't really find any to review, but if there's anyone in the Pittsburgh area with a 350Z, please send me a message and we'll make that review happen. But, I drove a 350Z twice, very, very, very briefly. Have a few objections with them I'll save until I, go and review one. For a lot of other reasons, I heard they're tricky to handle in the rain, things like that. Probably not interested in getting a 350Z. Even though they are probably within my price range, again, getting one for $10,000 is probably going to be beat up, kind of a little bit rougher shape. The G35 also is not a bad car, and that has a back seat, so that's similar to the 350Z, but a little more practical, a little more luxurious and things like that. The G35s, they're nice cars. I don't know, I'm not a huge fan of the interiors on them. They're luxurious, but just not a big fan of those like Nissan Infiniti interiors from that generation. It just feels old and dated at that point. Not a big fan of that. Another car people suggested was a Mazda RX-8, which has a back seat, has excellent balance, it's very good handling. The problem with those is I've heard a ton of horror stories about them. I mean, and it makes sense. It's different than just some other cars, or like the Mini, for example. A lot of people have said they're unreliable, whereas it's just mixed experiences. I've heard a lot of good things about the Mini as well, so it just depends. It seems like it's kind of luck of the draw, 50-50. Some people have awful luck with them, other people say they're great, never had an issue. So, but with the RX-8, it seems like the majority of owners say that it has issues, mostly because it's the rotary engine. The rotary engine, it just burns tons of oil. It's really hard to start in the winter time. Maybe if I lived in a place that didn't get super cold and snowy, then maybe I would consider one, but I heard they're just really tough to handle in the wintertime as far as the engines just not wanting to start and things like that. So that's the main reason. Also, they're a little bit on the older side as well, but that's the main reason why I wouldn't get an RX-8. It's just because of a rotary engine in them, and no torque as well. I mean, the BRZ doesn't have much torque either. The RX-8 really doesn't have any torque, so I think that would also kind of get on my nerves a little bit. Another thing, while I'm mentioning the Mini, a lot of you, including Saab, Kyle, and a few others, have suggested I get an R53 Mini, which is the older, the 05, 06, the first generation of the new Mini Cooper S, instead of the 07, which is the first year of the second generation, which is actually a very tempting suggestion because, I got to drive an old R53 Mini Cooper S a couple of times, and I love the supercharger whine. I love how sharp they handled. I do like the smaller dimensions of it, but the thing is, I like the slightly larger size of the second generation, and I also like the additional safety features, the slightly updated technology you get in the second generation, as far as infotainment, things like that go. And so for those reasons, I would prefer the second generation still. Although if I could find a really clean first generation, I would seriously consider it. That's one car that I would consider instead of the R56. I can't find any current. The thing is, with my car situation right now is, I'm going to have to sell the BRZ very, very soon, and I need to get something soon. So I don't have time to look around for a really nice, clean example of something. I've looked around on eBay for some older Minis and locally, in this area for sale, and there's really not a whole lot of nice ones out there that I could see. So again, this is just a time-sensitive thing. If a nice first-generation Mini Cooper S pops up in 05 or in 06, maybe I will get it over the second generation, but pretty set on the second generation. Another suggestion is a lot of people said, finally, get a Mustang. You've been wanting a Mustang forever, which is true. I have been wanting a Mustang forever. But the problem with the Mustang, even if I got a V6, is fuel consumption. So the Mini is nice because it gets nearly identical fuel economy to the BRZ. So I'm not going to be spending any more money in gas. Same size fuel tank as the BRZ and everything. So fuel, fill ups and stuff like that will be very, very similar. Mustang GT or even the V6, both are not very good on gas. Insurance will possibly be higher than the Mini as well. That's another reason why I would like an 05 or an 06 Mustang GT. That'd be really cool, or even a V6 with a manual. But again, I can't really find any nice ones for less than $10,000 that are manual transmission. I just looked on Craigslist and stuff like that. There's a whole handful of V6 Mustang automatics for less than $10,000 with decent miles on them, but no manuals. Manual V6 Mustangs are pretty hard to find, it seems, at least in my area, and the GTs are too expensive. I looked high and low for a GT for anywhere close to $10,000 of the 05, 06. Can't find any, and if you want to suggest like an older Mustang, you can watch my review on the older Mustang that I did. That was a 2003 or 4 that I reviewed, and not a big fan of those interiors. I hate those interiors. I'm sorry, but I need to have a somewhat nice interior. Those old Mustangs don't do it for me. The newer, ones, 05, 06, I could live with that interior, but I love the retro design, but like I said, can't find any within my price range that are, manuals, and they're not very good on gas either, so that's why the Mustang's out. Some people also suggested a Chevy Cobalt SS, which, is probably in my price range, and I could get something around $10,000. The problem with those, I've heard a few reliability issues with those. They're probably not too bad. Again, interior, not the best in those, and to be perfectly honest, I'm not a huge General Motors fan. No offense against anyone that is. Just for me personally, I'm kind of a Ford guy. I was really impressed with the brand new Camaro, and the newer Chevys are a lot better, but stuff from that generation, Another car a lot of people suggested is the Miata. And the Miata, obviously, a lot of people, like Matt Farah, have said Miata is always the answer, which is true. The Miata is a spectacular car. The only problem is, again, $10,000 price range that I'm in here, and you can't buy any of the newer Miatas for that, which means, I'd have to go with an older one, which really lacks refinement, no safety features, very tiny, so even though it doesn't have airbags, it doesn't have any metal around you to really protect you or anything. So old Miata is just a little bit too raw, and I need something a little bit more comfortable than that. A lot of people suggested some hatchbacks. First, they suggested the Ford Fiesta ST, which again is a brand new car. I'm not looking to spend, and even if you can lease one really, really cheaply, again, leasing, I drive way too many miles for a lease to work for me, brand new Fiestas are $21,000 or so for a base one. And that's out of my price range as well right now. If I was going to pay $21,000 for something, I could just refinance the BRZ and it'd be less than that anyway. So, payments wouldn't really work out for a Fiesta ST. Other older hatchbacks people suggested, first a Mazda Speed 3, which is a good car from what I've heard. I've never actually driven a Mazda Speed 3. Interiors on them, because I would have to get an old one. The newer ones are out of my price range. And even the older ones I can't really find within my price range. They can come somewhat close, 12 or 13,000 maybe for an older one with higher miles. Not a big fan of those older Mazda interiors though, personally. And like I said, I don't want something that's older and been beaten on a lot and stuff. So I don't really want a Mazda Speed 3 with almost 100,000 miles. That's not really what I'm going for. Another very good suggestion, and probably one of the most tempting suggestions, is Mark V Volkswagen GTI. I've always liked those cars with their funky, plaid interior, on the seats and things like that. I like the Mark V, and it drives very similar to the Audi A3 that I reviewed a few months ago. I've driven Mark V GTIs in the past. They do handle very nicely. I like them a lot. They have the safety features. They have the good gas mileage, the refinement. I like those in Volkswagen interiors back then. Nice cars. And you can sometimes find one for around $10,000. I was searching around a little bit, couldn't find too many though. And again, you got to be really careful with mods. But you can find some pretty clean ones. and that is one car that I would consider. Again, I just can't seem to find a whole lot out there, and like I said, time is a constraint, and I have found a really nice Mini Cooper S that I can go with, and so a GTI, if I had time to look around, would maybe be more worth it. And maybe possibly, if the Mini turns into a total reliability nightmare, in the future I could swap over to something like a GTI because it's very comparable and still be a lot of fun. And so a few of you mentioned, you have GTIs, they're spectacular cars, and that would be a car that I wouldn't mind owning. But I do personally like the looks of the Mini slightly more as well, so still like the Mini a little bit better, but the Volkswagen GTI is definitely a tempting suggestion. So thank you to all of you guys that suggested that. And lastly, quite a few of you suggested a Honda S2000, which I actually came very close to buying an S2000 probably 5 years ago. And if it wasn't black, I probably would have bought it. I'm not a big fan of black cars, but it was a really, really nice car, and I drove it all day. I mean, I've driven S2000s several times now. Really love the driving dynamics of them. I love the convertible aspect and all that kind of stuff. Again, safety features are a little bit lacking, which is a little bit of a turn off to me. It's also a little bit more raw than I would like, and it doesn't have a back seat. Some people have driven them in the snow. For example, in my snow fun video, you can see S2000 sliding around my buddy's S2000. And so that's something that an S2000 is tempting, but I just need something a little more practical than that, unfortunately. Otherwise, that would be a very tempting car because I have found some nice ones for around $10,000. So that would definitely make sense. Just want something a little bit more refined, and but yeah, the S2000 is also another very good suggestion. So. But yeah, so that's basically most of the cars you guys suggested and my reasons why I'm not getting, most of those cars. Like I said, a GTI is something I would consider if a really nice, clean, older WRX did come up, in the next day or two. Maybe I would consider that, but pretty set on the Mini. I know of a Mini that I'm going to be hopefully buying here. I already, found it, test drove it, like it a lot, and so I'll be hopefully debuting that here in the next few days. But in the meantime, keep the suggestions coming if you have some others. But pretty set on the Mini, so you're probably not going to change my mind. But I don't mind hearing suggestions anyway. I appreciate all of you, trying to help me out through all this. It's definitely a crappy time because obviously I would like to keep the BRZ. That is, if I could, I would just keep it and that's it. But unfortunately I can't, and so making the best of the situation. And it'll be fun, to have a little bit of a different change in a different car. It's always, exciting to have something different, and. So yeah, trying to make the best of the situation, and like I said, lots of other sweet videos coming. For example, hoping to do some pretty cool reviews here in the future. I just did the WRX review 2015 yesterday. That was awesome, so thank you guys so much for all your support. I think since I uploaded that, like 36 hours ago, it already has over 13,000 views, which is insane. So thank you guys so much for all your support. It really means a lot, and it definitely helps as well. The larger this channel gets, then the quicker I'll be able to get into a nice car again, because all your support definitely helps me as well. So thanks again, guys, and I'll see you next time. Take care.